The deafening silence of the Lumos Tech conference room crashed down on Brooke Lawson as the words "You're fired" echoed off the glass walls. 70 pairs of eyes stared at her across the long mahogany table, while her presentation slides still glowed on the screen behind her. The quarterly marketing report she'd spent 3 weeks perfecting now rendered meaningless. "I'm sorry, what did you just say?" Brooke's voice came out barely above a whisper, her fingers gripping the edge of the table to steady herself. Marcus Daniels, the marketing director, adjusted his tie uncomfortably. "The decision has been made. The department is restructuring, and your position has been eliminated, effective immediately." Brooke's gaze swept across the conference room, colleagues she'd worked alongside for 4 years now avoiding eye contact, except for a few who offered sympathetic glances. But her eyes froze when they reached the far corner of the room, where a tall man in an impeccably tailored charcoal suit observed the scene with an unreadable expression. She'd never seen him before, but the respectful distance everyone kept from him suggested importance. "I see," she managed, gathering her portfolio with trembling hands. "May I at least finish my presentation?" "That won't be necessary," Marcus replied, his voice clipped. "IT will need your laptop and badge before you leave the building." Brooke nodded mechanically, somehow keeping her composure as she collected her things. She refused to let them see her break down. The walk to her office felt like a death march, colleagues parting before her like she carried something contagious. At her desk, she mechanically packed her personal items, the small potted succulent framed photos, and the business award she'd won last year into a cardboard box provided by HR. The irony wasn't lost on her. Just yesterday, she'd been told her social media campaign had boosted customer engagement by 40%. Quite a show in there. Brooke looked up to find the mystery man from the conference room leaning against her office doorframe. Up close, she noticed his sharp jawline, intense green eyes, and the subtle silver threads in his otherwise dark hair. He was older than her, perhaps mid-30s to her 28, but carried himself with the quiet confidence that only came with significant success. "I'm glad my professional humiliation entertained you," she replied, unable to keep the bitterness from her voice. Instead of looking offended, he smiled. "Actually, I was referring to your presentation. The 5 seconds of it I got to see before the execution. Bold strategy to focus on authenticity over virality." Brooke paused, surprised. "Most people don't understand that approach." "I'm not most people." He stepped into her office, extending his hand. "Ryan Lawless." Brooke's heart stumbled as recognition dawned. Ryan Lawless, the reclusive CEO of Lawless Enterprises, which had acquired Lumos Tech 6 months ago. The business magazines called him the shadow executive for his tendency to observe companies incognito before making major changes. She took his hand automatically. "Brooke Lawson." "I know." His handshake was firm but not domineering. "Your reputation precedes you, Miss Lawson." "Apparently not enough to keep my job," she said, returning to packing her things. Ryan watched her for a moment. "Have dinner with me tonight." Brooke nearly dropped the framed photo she was holding. "Excuse me, dinner to discuss your future." "My future was just escorted out that conference room door, Mr. Lawless. Maybe, or maybe that was just a necessary redirection." He placed a business card on her desk. 8 o'clock. The address is on the card. Come prepared to discuss that marketing strategy you didn't get to finish presenting. Before she could formulate a response, he was gone, leaving her staring at the embossed card with an address in the upscale harbor district. The security guard looked genuinely sorry as he escorted her from the building. Brooke managed to hold her tears until she reached her car in the parking garage, where she finally let herself break down, forehead pressed against the steering wheel. After 15 minutes of sobbing, she straightened up, wiped her eyes, and stared at the business card she'd placed on her passenger seat. The rational part of her brain said to ignore it. The CEO had probably just felt sorry for her. But the part that needed to pay rent next month was desperate for any opportunity. After a long shower and several pep talks to herself in the mirror, Brooke chose a navy dress that walked the line between professional and elegant. She arrived at the address precisely at 8, surprised to find it wasn't a restaurant but a sophisticated penthouse overlooking the city. A doorman greeted her by name before she could introduce herself and escorted her to a private elevator. The butterflies in her stomach multiplied as she ascended to the top floor. The elevator opened directly into a spacious living area with floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing the glittering cityscape. Ryan stood at a small bar, pouring 2 glasses of wine. "Right on time," he said, offering her a glass. "I appreciate punctuality." "I appreciate transparency," Brooke countered, accepting the wine but not drinking. "Why am I here, Mr. Lawless? Ryan, please." He gestured toward a dining table set for 2 near the windows. "And you're here because I've spent the last month quietly observing Lumos Tech, trying to understand why a company with so much potential was consistently underperforming in the market." As they sat, servers appeared from a hidden kitchen, presenting an elegant meal. Brooke remained guarded, barely touching her food as Ryan continued. "What I discovered was a company afraid to innovate, surrounded by yes-men who protected their positions by squashing anyone with fresh ideas." His green eyes locked with hers. "People like you." "So you invited me here out of some misplaced corporate guilt?" Brooke asked, finally taking a sip of wine. Ryan smiled, and Brooke hated the way it transformed his face, softening the sharp angles. "I invited you here because I'm offering you a job, Miss Lawson." "A job," she repeated flatly. "Head of marketing for Horizon, my new tech division. Double your previous salary, full creative control, and a direct reporting line to me." Brooke nearly choked on her wine. "You're offering me a promotion after watching me get fired." "I'm offering you a position based on your portfolio, your industry reputation, and what I observed today. Marcus Daniels didn't fire you because you were underperforming. He fired you because you were outshining him, and he knew I was watching." Brooke sat back, processing his words. "This feels like a fairy tale or a trap." Ryan leaned forward. "No fairy tale, no trap, just business. I need someone who thinks differently, who isn't afraid to push boundaries." "Your social media campaign for Lumos increased engagement while reducing ad spend, a combination most executives would consider impossible." "How do you know all this?" "I make it my business to know talent when I see it." He slid a folder across the table. "Take the weekend to review the offer. We can discuss specifics on Monday." Brooke opened the folder, her eyes widening at the compensation package. It was more than generous, it was life-changing. "Why me?" she asked, unable to hide her suspicion. "There are hundreds of marketing executives with more experience." "Experience isn't always the best teacher. Sometimes it just reinforces bad habits." Ryan's expression grew serious. "I don't want someone who knows how to follow the rules. I want someone who knows which rules need breaking." The conversation shifted to marketing strategies, technology trends, and vision for the future. Despite her initial reservations, Brooke found herself engaged, challenging his ideas and offering alternatives. Before she realized it, 3 hours had passed, their meal long finished as they moved to the living area with fresh drinks to continue their discussion. "It's getting late," Brooke finally said, noticing it was nearly midnight. "I should go," Ryan nodded, walking her to the elevator. "Consider the offer, Brooke. Talent like yours shouldn't be sidelined by corporate politics." As the elevator doors closed between them, Brooke couldn't help but feel she'd just experienced something significant, though whether it was a professional opportunity or something more personal, she wasn't entirely sure. The weekend passed in a blur of job applications and anxiety, though the folder from Ryan remained unopened on her coffee table, both tempting and intimidating. By Sunday evening, practicality won over pride, and she thoroughly reviewed the offer, making notes and preparing questions. Monday morning found her in the lobby of Lawless Enterprises' downtown headquarters, dressed in her most confident outfit, a charcoal pencil skirt and emerald blouse that brought out the green in her hazel eyes. Ryan's assistant, a sharp-eyed woman named Deanna, escorted her directly to his office. Unlike the warm, personal space of his penthouse, his corporate office was minimalist and functional, with little decoration beyond a few architectural awards and a large abstract painting. "Have you made a decision?" Ryan asked without preamble as she took a seat across from his desk. "I have questions first," Brooke replied, pulling out her notepad. Ryan smiled, seeming pleased by her preparedness. "I'd be concerned if you didn't." For the next hour, they discussed specifics about the position, the new division, and her role in shaping its direction. With each answer, Brooke's excitement grew. This wasn't just a job, it was a chance to build something from the ground up. "One last question," she said, setting down her pen. "Why did you really invite me to dinner? You could have had your assistant call with this offer." Ryan's expression shifted subtly. "I wanted to see if our minds aligned as well as I suspected they might. Business partnerships require more than compatible resumes, they need compatible visions." "And do they?" Brooke asked. "Align, I mean." "Remarkably so," he admitted. "Which brings me back to my original question. Have you made a decision?" Brooke took a deep breath. "I have. I accept the position with one condition." Ryan raised an eyebrow. "Which is, I want to build my own team." "There are several talented people at Lumos being wasted in their current positions." Ryan studied her for a moment before nodding. "Loyalty, I respect that. Make me a list and we'll discuss it." They shook hands, and Brooke felt a flutter in her chest that had nothing to do with professional excitement and everything to do with the warmth of his palm against hers. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of activity. Brooke was given a corner office with a view nearly as impressive as Ryan's penthouse. She built her team, bringing over 4 former colleagues from Lumos who had reached out after her firing to express their support. Together, they began crafting the marketing strategy for Horizon's launch. Ryan was unlike any executive she'd worked with before. He attended every major meeting but rarely dominated the conversation, instead asking probing questions that pushed the team to refine their thinking. He valued substance over showmanship and rewarded innovation over tradition. They fell into a rhythm of late-night strategy sessions in his office, takeout containers littering the conference table as they fine-tuned the launch plan. It was during these unguarded moments that Brooke began to see beyond the polished CEO exterior to the man beneath, passionate about technology, quietly funny, and surprisingly vulnerable about his fears of failure. "My father built his company on handshakes and intuition," Ryan confessed one night as they worked through budget projections. "I built mine on data and precision. Sometimes I wonder if I've lost something essential in the process." "Different doesn't mean worse," Brooke replied, surprised by his candor. "Your approach created opportunities my generation wouldn't have had otherwise." Ryan smiled, the rare kind that reached his eyes. "That's what I like about you, Brooke. You see the larger pattern, not just the immediate data points." As the launch date approached, their working relationship deepened. Brooke found herself looking forward to their meetings, dressed just a bit more carefully each morning and lingering just a bit longer each evening. She told herself it was professional dedication, but the flutter in her stomach when he complimented her ideas suggested otherwise. The night before the product launch, the entire team worked late, finalizing details and running through contingencies. One by one, they departed until only Brooke and Ryan remained, reviewing the presentation one last time. "We should both get some rest," Ryan said, rubbing his eyes. "Tomorrow's a big day." "Just one more run-through," Brooke insisted, clicking back to the beginning of the presentation. Ryan watched her for a moment. "You know, I've never met anyone who works as hard as you do," says the man who answers emails at 3 in the morning, she countered, not looking up from her laptop. "Fair point." He moved closer, his shoulder brushing hers as he leaned in to see the screen. "Is this dedication or anxiety?" "Both," Brooke admitted. "This launch could define my entire career." It's just one moment in a long career that's already impressive, Ryan corrected gently. And regardless of tomorrow's outcome, you've already proven your value here. The sincerity in his voice made her look up, suddenly aware of how close they were. For a heartbeat, something electric passed between them, an acknowledgement of the tension that had been building for weeks. Ryan broke the moment first, stepping back. We should call it a night. Cars waiting downstairs to take you home. Brooke nodded, gathering her things and trying to ignore the disappointment settling in her chest. See you tomorrow, then. Bright and early, he agreed, his professional mask firmly back in place. The product launch was nothing short of spectacular. Held in the grand ballroom of the city's most prestigious hotel, it attracted technology journalists, industry influencers, and potential clients from across the country. Brooke's marketing campaign had created the perfect amount of pre-launch buzz, with Horizon Rising trending on multiple platforms before the event even began. Ryan delivered the keynote speech with confident precision, but it was Brooke's presentation of the marketing strategy that truly captured the audience's imagination. Her approach of authenticity over conventional advertising resonated deeply, earning a standing ovation and immediate social media praise. At the reception afterward, Brooke navigated the crowd with practiced ease, answering questions and building relationships with key media contacts. She was deep in conversation with a technology blogger when she felt a hand at the small of her back. "You're the star of the hour," Ryan said quietly near her ear. "Everyone's talking about your presentation." Brooke turned, unable to suppress her smile. "We did it. We actually did it." "You did it," he corrected. "This success is yours to claim." Before she could respond, they were interrupted by a group of investors eager to speak with Ryan. He was pulled away, throwing an apologetic glance over his shoulder as Brooke returned to networking. Hours later, as the event wound down and staff began clearing away evidence of the celebration, Brooke found a quiet moment alone on the hotel's terrace, savoring the cool night air and the satisfaction of a job well done. "There you are," Ryan's voice came from behind her. "I've been looking for you." Brooke turned to see him approaching, his tie loosened and jacket discarded. "Just needed a moment to process everything, and what's the verdict?" he asked, joining her at the railing. "That this was one of the best days of my career," she admitted. "From being fired in front of everyone to this, it's surreal." Ryan studied her face in the soft terrace lighting. "You know, when I saw Marcus fire you that day, I was furious. Not because it disrupted my observation, but because I recognized immediately what they were losing." "Their loss, your gain," Brooke suggested with a small smile. "My gain in more ways than one," Ryan said quietly. Something in his tone made Brooke's heart skip. "What do you mean?" "I hired you for your talent, your vision, your drive," he began, moving closer. "But these past weeks working together, I've found myself looking forward to our meetings for entirely unprofessional reasons." Brooke's breath caught. "Ryan, I know it's complicated," he continued. "I'm your boss. There are 1,000 reasons why this is a bad idea. But tonight, watching you shine in that room, I couldn't deny it anymore." "Deny what?" she whispered, though she already knew. Instead of answering, he reached up, gently tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "That I'm falling in love with you, Brooke Lawson. And it has nothing to do with marketing strategies or product launches." The world seemed to pause around them. Brooke knew she should consider the professional implications, the potential complications, the office gossip. Instead, all she could think about was how right it felt when he looked at her that way. "I can have Deanna reassign your reporting line to the COO," Ryan offered when she remained silent. "We can establish proper boundaries, if that's what you want." "What I want," Brooke said slowly, finding her courage, "is to stop pretending I'm not feeling the same way." The kiss that followed was soft at first, a question more than a declaration. But when Brooke's arms wrapped around his neck, drawing him closer, it deepened into something more certain, more promising. When they finally parted, Ryan rested his forehead against hers. "We should probably discuss this somewhere more private." "Probably," Brooke agreed with a smile. They left the hotel separately to avoid speculation, but met again an hour later at Ryan's penthouse. There, over late-night coffee, they talked openly about their feelings, the complications, and how to navigate their professional relationship alongside a personal one. "I don't want special treatment," Brooke insisted. "I've worked too hard to have anyone think I succeeded because of who I'm dating." "Agreed," Ryan said. "Your success stands on its own merits. Anyone who saw your work today knows that." They decided to keep their relationship private initially, focusing on establishing Brooke in her role beyond question before making anything public. Ryan arranged for her to report directly to the COO, removing the direct line of authority while keeping her position's importance intact. Over the following months, Brooke proved herself repeatedly as Horizon flourished under her marketing guidance. The team expanded, their offices grew, and their relationship deepened away from the corporate spotlight. 6 months after the launch, with Horizon exceeding all revenue projections, Ryan suggested a weekend getaway to celebrate their success. He flew them to a small coastal town where no one would recognize them, allowing them to walk hand in hand along the beach without concern for business gossip. On their final evening, as the sun set over the ocean, Ryan led her to a secluded spot on the sand where a small picnic had been arranged. "What's all this?" Brooke asked, taking in the champagne on ice and rose petals scattered across the blanket. "A celebration," Ryan replied, pouring 2 glasses, "to extraordinary beginnings." They toasted, watching the sky transform through shades of orange and pink. As twilight settled around them, Ryan set down his glass and took both her hands in his. "When I watched you get fired that day, I saw something in you that fascinated me," he began. "Not just your professional talents, but your dignity, your resilience, your fire. I offered you a job because I recognized your value to my company, but I never expected you would become invaluable to my heart." Brooke's eyes widened as he reached into his pocket and withdrew a small velvet box. "I know it's fast," he continued, "but when you know, you know. And I've never been more certain of anything in my life." Opening the box revealed a stunning emerald ring surrounded by diamonds. "Brooke Lawson, will you marry me?" Tears filled her eyes as she nodded. "Yes, yes, absolutely yes." As he slid the ring onto her finger, Brooke couldn't help but marvel at life's unexpected turns. 6 months ago, she'd stood humiliated in front of her colleagues, career seemingly in ruins. Now she was engaged to a man who had seen her potential when others had tried to diminish it, building a future brighter than she could have imagined. "You know," she said as he pulled her into his arms, "getting fired might have been the best thing that ever happened to me." Ryan laughed, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "Their greatest mistake became my greatest blessing." 3 months later, they made their relationship public in the most dramatic way possible, a joint interview in Business Weekly, announcing both their engagement and Horizon's expansion into international markets. The business world buzzed with speculation about their relationship timeline, but their professional success spoke for itself, silencing most critics. They married the following spring in an intimate ceremony at Ryan's lake house, surrounded by close friends and family. Brooke's team from Horizon served as her bridesmaids, while Ryan's longtime business partners stood as his groomsmen. During the reception, Marcus Daniels, who had been let go from Lumos Tech shortly after Brooke's departure, approached their table, champagne in hand. "Congratulations," he said stiffly. "Quite the Cinderella story." "Not Cinderella," Brooke corrected with a confident smile, "just a woman who refused to let one bad day define her future." As Marcus walked away, Ryan squeezed her hand. "Have I mentioned today how much I love you?" "You have, but I'll never tire of hearing it," she replied, leaning in for a kiss. 2 years after their wedding, as Horizon became Lawless Enterprises' most profitable division, Brooke and Ryan welcomed their first child, a daughter they named Lily, who inherited her mother's determination and her father's thoughtful gaze. On Lily's first birthday, as they watched her attempt her first steps in their backyard garden, Ryan wrapped his arms around Brooke's waist from behind. "Remember that day in the conference room?" he murmured against her hair. "How could I forget?" "It was the worst and best day of my life," Brooke replied, leaning back against his chest. "I knew then," he confessed. "Watching you hold your head high as you walked out, I knew you were extraordinary." Brooke turned in his arms, reaching up to touch his face. "And I knew when you offered me that job that you were different from any boss I'd ever had. I just didn't realize how completely you would change my life." As their daughter succeeded in taking 3 wobbly steps before plopping down with a triumphant giggle, Brooke and Ryan shared a look of pure joy. From professional humiliation to personal triumph, their journey had defied expectations and conventional timelines. "To think," Brooke mused, "all this happiness started with the words 'you're fired,'" Ryan laughed, pulling her closer. "Sometimes the universe has to close one door rather firmly to make you notice the better one waiting to be opened." As they joined their daughter on the grass, celebrating her small victory with overwhelming pride, Brooke couldn't help but be grateful for that painful moment years ago. In losing a job she had thought defined her, she had found something infinitely more valuable: a partner who recognized her worth, a career that fulfilled her potential, and a love that transformed both their lives in ways neither could have predicted. Sometimes, Brooke reflected as Ryan spun their giggling daughter in the air, the most devastating moments lead to the most beautiful beginnings. And sometimes, the person watching from the corner of the room changes everything.